Getting beat up by my classmate was the best gift ever. The first punch caught me square in the jaw at exactly 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, right in front of the senior parking lot where at least 30 kids were waiting for their rides home. I know the exact time because I checked my phone afterward, when I was sitting on the asphalt with blood in my mouth, thinking this might actually be the best thing that ever happened to me. Tyler Morrison, 6'3", 200 pounds of prime quarterback muscle and a golden boy of Lincoln High, stood over me flexing his knuckles like some discount action hero. His Letterman jacket was perfectly positioned to catch the afternoon sun, and I swear he was posing for the crowd that had gathered in a loose circle around us. "Stay away from Sarah, you little freak," he snarled, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I see you talking to her again, and next time won't be so gentle." I wiped blood from my split lip and almost smiled. Next time won't be so gentle, perfect. The crowd was eating it up. Some girl near the bike racks was literally recording on her phone. Tyler's boys were laughing and fist-bumping like their leader had just thrown the winning touchdown instead of sucker-punching a kid who weighed maybe 140 pounds soaking wet. The thing is, I hadn't even been talking to Sarah. I'd asked to borrow her notes in AP history because I'd missed class yesterday, a completely normal interaction that apparently threatened Tyler's fragile ego. But that didn't matter now. What mattered was that after 6 months of Tyler's psychological warfare, the shoulder checks in the hallway, the accidental food spills, the constant stream of creative insults about my clothes, my hair, my existence in general, he'd finally crossed the line into something the adults couldn't ignore. "You done, Morrison?" I asked, staying on the ground. Let him think he'd won. Let everyone see exactly what kind of person the great Tyler Morrison really was. His face twisted with confusion. Victims weren't supposed to talk back. They were supposed to scurry away in shame while he basked in the glory of his dominance display. "What did you say to me?" I asked if you were done. I made my voice a little louder, clearer. The girl with the phone had moved closer. "Because if you want to keep going, that's fine with me. Just want to make sure everyone gets a good view." That's when Tyler's mask slipped completely. His face went red, and for just a second, I saw the real him, not the charming athlete who had teachers and parents wrapped around his finger, but something uglier. Something that belonged in a cage, not on a college recruiter's wish list. He kicked me in the ribs. Hard. Hard enough that I actually gasped and curled up on my side. The crowd went quiet, even Tyler's friends looked uncomfortable. This wasn't playful dominance anymore. This was just brutality. "Tyler, man, that's enough," someone called out. But Tyler was beyond hearing reason. He grabbed my backpack and dumped it out, scattering my books and papers across the parking lot. My calculator, the expensive one Mom had saved up for months to buy, skittered under a car. "Pick it up," he commanded. "Pick it all up and apologize." I looked up at him from the ground, tasting copper and possibility. Around us, phones were definitely recording now. Multiple phones. Tyler Morrison, the pride of Lincoln High, having a complete meltdown in front of half the student body. This was going to be so much easier than I'd thought. I stayed on the ground for another beat, letting Tyler's words hang in the air like toxic smoke. Around us, the crowd had grown to maybe 40 kids now. Word travels fast when the school's golden boy is having a public breakdown. I could see Jenny Martinez from student council looking horrified, and even Brad Kowalski, who usually worshipped the ground Tyler walked on, was shaking his head. I said, "Pick it up." Tyler's voice cracked on the last word. Desperation was creeping in now that his audience wasn't cheering anymore. I slowly pushed myself up to my knees and started gathering my scattered papers. My copy of The Great Gatsby had landed face down in a puddle, the cover already warping. That was going to cost me $12 to replace, $12 I didn't have. I made a mental note to add it to the list. "Apologize," Tyler demanded, but his voice was quieter now. Some part of his brain was finally registering that this wasn't going according to plan. "For what?" I asked, genuinely curious. I found my pencil case under Mrs. Henderson's Honda Civic and added it to the pile in my arms. For being a creep. For bothering Sarah. I asked to borrow notes for a class we both take. That's bothering her. The crowd was listening now, really listening. Sarah Chin herself had appeared near the edge of the circle, probably drawn by the commotion. Her face was flushed with embarrassment, and she kept glancing between Tyler and me like she couldn't believe this was happening over a 5-second conversation about the French Revolution. "Tyler, what are you doing?" Sarah's voice cut through the tension like a knife. He literally just asked about homework. And there it was. The moment Tyler Morrison's carefully constructed image started crumbling in real time. His face went through about 6 different expressions in 3 seconds: confusion, anger, betrayal, and finally a desperate kind of panic. Sarah wasn't supposed to contradict him. Sarah was supposed to be the grateful girlfriend, protected by her big strong quarterback from all the creepy losers who dared speak to her. "He was looking at you weird," Tyler said, but even he didn't sound convinced anymore. "He was looking at my notebook, Tyler. Because I take good notes. Which you would know if you ever paid attention in class instead of throwing paper balls at people." Oh, this was beautiful. Sarah had clearly been holding back frustrations for a while, and Tyler's public tantrum had given her the perfect opening to let them out. I could practically see the college scholarship letters spontaneously combusting. "Baby, come on. Don't baby me right now." Sarah's voice was getting stronger, more confident. "You just beat up Marcus for asking about homework. Do you hear how insane that sounds?" Tyler looked around the circle of faces, searching for support that wasn't coming. His usual crew of followers was studying their shoes. The underclassmen who normally scattered when he walked by were watching with open fascination. Someone's phone camera was still rolling, capturing every second of his meltdown. "This is ridiculous," he finally muttered. "Everyone's being ridiculous." But instead of walking away like a smart person would, Tyler made the best possible choice from my perspective. He grabbed my shoulder and yanked me to my feet, getting right in my face with that trademark intimidating glare that had worked so well for him in the past. "You think you're smart, don't you, Marcus? Think you're better than everyone else with your AP classes and your perfect grades?" I looked him straight in the eye and smiled. "I think I'm smart enough not to assault someone in front of 40 witnesses." That's when he hit me again. The second punch was different from the first. Where the initial hit had been impulsive, almost reflexive, this one was calculated. Tyler put his full weight behind it, catching me in the stomach hard enough that I doubled over and actually retched. The crowd's murmur turned into gasps, and someone, I think it was Jessica from my calculus class, actually screamed. Tyler, stop. Sarah's voice was shrill now, panicked. What is wrong with you? But Tyler was completely gone. 6 months of me refusing to properly cower, of me continuing to exist in his line of sight, of me somehow surviving his campaign of psychological torture, it had all built up to this moment where his fragile ego finally shattered completely. He grabbed the front of my shirt and pulled me upright, and I could smell the protein shake on his breath, see the tiny scar on his chin from some childhood accident. Up close, without the swagger and the Letterman jacket confidence, Tyler Morrison looked almost pathetic. Just another scared kid who'd never learned how to handle his emotions. You want to act tough now, he whispered, quiet enough that only I could hear. I know where you live, Marcus. I know your mom works double shifts at the hospital. Leaves you all alone in that shitty apartment complex. And there it was, the moment this stopped being just about school bullying and became something much more serious. Tyler wasn't just threatening me anymore. He was threatening my family, my home. The smart thing would have been to back down, to give him the submission he desperately needed to repair his damaged ego. Instead, I looked past his shoulder to where Jenny Martinez was still filming and spoke loud enough for the microphone to pick up clearly. Are you threatening to come to my house, Tyler? Because that sounds like stalking. His grip on my shirt tightened. You little. Hey. Break it up. Right now. Coach Davidson's voice boomed across the parking lot with the authority of someone used to commanding 200-pound linebackers. The crowd scattered like roaches when the lights come on, but Tyler was still holding my shirt, still standing too close, still radiating the kind of barely controlled violence that made my ribs ache. Morrison. Step back. Tyler released me so suddenly I stumbled, his face cycling through emotions as Coach Davidson approached. I watched him try to slip back into his golden boy persona, straightening his jacket, running a hand through his perfect hair, arranging his features into an expression of confused innocence. Coach, hey, this isn't what it looks like, Tyler started, but his voice was still shaky with leftover adrenaline. Marcus here was bothering my girlfriend, and I saw exactly what you Coach Davidson cut him off. His weathered face was grim, the expression of someone who'd coached high school football for 23 years and had seen every type of kid who'd ever put on a helmet. What I saw was my starting quarterback assaulting a student half his size in front of half the school. Tyler's face went white. Coach, it wasn't assault, it was just. Son, when you hit someone who isn't hitting you back, that's assault. When you do it in front of witnesses, that's assault with an audience. Coach Davidson's tone was deadly quiet now. When you do it while wearing my team's colors, that's a problem that's about to become your problem. I stayed silent, letting Tyler dig his own grave. Around us, most of the crowd had dispersed, but I could see kids lingering by their cars, phones still out, probably texting furiously or uploading videos to social media. By tomorrow morning, everyone at Lincoln High would have seen Tyler Morrison's public meltdown. Marcus, Coach Davidson turned to me. You need medical attention. I touched my split lip gingerly. I think I'll survive. That's not what I asked. You're right, Coach. My lip is split, my ribs hurt where he kicked me, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a bruise on my jaw. I kept my voice steady, matter of fact. Should probably get it documented, in case there are any complications. Coach Davidson nodded grimly. Good thinking. Tyler, you're coming with me to Principal Hayes' office. Right now. But Coach, we have practice in 20 minutes. Not today, you don't. The finality in Coach Davidson's voice could have cut glass. Marcus, I want you to go to the nurse's office first, then I want you in Hayes' office too. We're going to sort this out properly. As Coach Davidson marched Tyler toward the school building, I heard Tyler trying one last desperate play. Coach, you know how important the Riverside game is. We need to be focusing on. What we need is for you to explain to me why the kid I've been vouching for to college scouts just threw his future away in a parking lot. That stopped Tyler cold. I watched his shoulders slump as the reality hit him. Coach Davidson wasn't just angry about a fight. He was talking about college scouts, recommendations, the full ride scholarship to state that Tyler treated like his birthright. After they disappeared into the building, I took my time gathering the rest of my scattered belongings. My ribs protested every time I bent over, but I wanted these few minutes alone to process what had just happened. Sarah had vanished at some point during Coach Davidson's arrival, probably mortified by the whole scene. Smart girl. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, dude, that video is already at 200 views and counting. Tyler's done. Jake from your chemistry class, asterisk. Then another, asterisk, holy shit Marcus, are you okay? That was insane. Jenny M, asterisk. And another, asterisk, my cousin at state says their coaches hate drama kids. This is going to torpedo his recruitment, Alex, asterisk. I allowed myself a small smile as I limped toward the nurse's office. The machine was already working. Mrs. Patterson, the school nurse, clucked over my injuries like a concerned grandmother. She documented everything meticulously, the split lip, the developing bruise on my jaw, the tender spot on my ribs where Tyler's kick had landed. She took photos for the incident report, noting the time stamps, and insisted on calling my mom despite my protests that it wasn't serious enough to bother her at work. Marcus? Baby, what happened? Mrs. Patterson says you were in a fight? Mom's voice was tight with worry over the speakerphone. Tyler Morrison beat me up in the parking lot. Mrs. Patterson wants to send me for x-rays to make sure my ribs are okay. The silence stretched for almost 10 seconds. When Mom finally spoke, her voice had gone from worried to dangerous. That boy put his hands on you. Multiple witnesses, including Coach Davidson. It's all being handled. I'm leaving work right now. Mom, you don't need to. Marcus Chin Williams, when someone assaults my son, I absolutely need to. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Mrs. Patterson hung up the phone and gave me a knowing look. Your mother sounds like she's not going to let this slide. She's really not. I winced as she applied antiseptic to my lip. Mom doesn't believe in proportional responses. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Principal Hayes' office with an ice pack pressed to my jaw, watching my mother systematically dismantle Tyler Morrison's life. Mom had arrived in full nurse practitioner mode, scrubs, stethoscope still around her neck, and the kind of focused intensity she usually reserved for medical emergencies. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Mom was saying, her voice terrifyingly calm. Tyler Morrison, a 17-year-old who outweighs my son by 60 pounds, punched Marcus in the face, kicked him in the ribs, and then threatened to come to our home. And this happened in front of dozens of witnesses. Principal Hayes shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Mrs. Williams, I understand you're upset. Dr. Williams, Mom corrected smoothly. And upset doesn't begin to cover it. Principal Hayes looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the world. He kept adjusting his tie and shuffling papers on his desk, the classic stalling tactics of an administrator who knew he was about to get steamrolled by an angry parent with a legitimate grievance. Dr. Williams, he corrected himself hastily. I want you to know we're taking this very seriously. Tyler is suspended pending a full investigation. Suspended? Mom's voice could have frozen nitrogen. Mr. Hayes, what my son described isn't a school discipline issue. It's assault and battery. Have you contacted the police? The silence stretched uncomfortably. Principal Hayes glanced at me, then back at my mother, clearly hoping one of us would give him an out that wasn't coming. Well, we like to handle these matters internally when possible, he finally said. Tyler's never been in serious trouble before, and with his college prospects. Stop right there. Mom held up one hand, and Principal Hayes actually flinched. Are you telling me that you're considering Tyler Morrison's football career more important than my son's safety? Of course not, but we have to consider all factors. The only factor you need to consider is that a student was violently assaulted on school property under your supervision. Mom pulled out her phone and started typing. I'm documenting this conversation, by the way. For when I speak with the superintendent tomorrow morning. That got Principal Hayes' attention. His face went pale, and he started backpedaling fast. Dr. Williams, there's no need to involve the superintendent. We can handle this appropriately at the school level. Can you? Because it sounds like you're more concerned about protecting Lincoln High's star quarterback than ensuring student safety. Mom finished typing and looked up at him. Tell me, how many other students has Tyler Morrison internally disciplined this year? The question hung in the air like a live grenade. I watched Principal Hayes' face cycle through several expressions before settling on trapped resignation. He knew. Of course he knew. You don't get to be a 200-pound bully without leaving a trail of complaints, and Tyler had been operating freely for months. There have been a few minor incidents, Principal Hayes admitted reluctantly. Define few. Dr. Williams, I can't discuss other students' disciplinary records. You can discuss how many complaints you've received about Tyler Morrison threatening or intimidating other students. Mom leaned forward in her chair, and I recognized the expression on her face. It was the same one she got when dealing with incompetent doctors who put hospital politics ahead of patient care. Because if there's a pattern of behavior that you've ignored, and my son is the victim who finally got hurt badly enough that you can't sweep it under the rug anymore, that's a very different conversation. Principal Hayes was definitely sweating now. He kept glancing at his computer screen like it might provide salvation, but we all knew what was on there. Incident reports, parent complaints, probably teacher concerns that had been filed away and forgotten because Tyler Morrison was too valuable to discipline properly. There have been 7 formal complaints filed against Tyler this academic year, he finally admitted. Plus numerous informal reports from teachers about disruptive behavior, intimidation tactics, and what they described as territorial aggression toward other students. 7 other kids had tried to get help, and Principal Hayes had buried their complaints to protect the football team star player. I felt a cold anger settling in my chest, different from the calculating satisfaction I'd been riding since the parking lot. This wasn't just about me anymore. 7 complaints, and you did what exactly? Mom's voice was getting quieter, which was never a good sign. We spoke with Tyler multiple times about his behavior. He's been very responsive to guidance, and his grades and athletic performance have remained excellent. His athletic performance. Mom repeated the words like they tasted bad. Mr. Hayes, are you actually telling me that you measured a violent student's improvement by his football statistics? The office door opened, and Coach Davidson walked in looking like he'd aged 5 years in the past hour. His usually confident demeanor was replaced by the grim expression of someone who just watched his championship hopes evaporate. Principal Hayes, we need to talk about Morrison, he said, then noticed my mother. Ma'am, I'm Coach Davidson. I'm the one who broke up the incident in the parking lot. Dr. Williams, Mom said, shaking his hand. Thank you for intervening. Coach Davidson nodded, then turned back to Principal Hayes. I just got off the phone with the athletic director at State. Somehow they already know about what happened today. They're pulling Tyler's scholarship offer. Principal Hayes went white. How could they already know? Because half the school posted videos online, and college recruiters follow social media now. Coach Davidson slumped into an empty chair. The video I saw had Tyler kicking a kid on the ground while threatening to stalk him at home. No college program wants that liability. I kept my expression neutral, but inside I was celebrating. The machine was working even faster than I'd hoped. Coach Davidson pulled out his phone and showed us the screen. This one's got over 3,000 views already. Lincoln High QB loses it on smaller student. The comments aren't pretty. I leaned forward to see, wincing as my ribs protested. The video was crystal clear, Tyler's face contorted with rage, his Letterman jacket perfectly visible as he delivered that second punch. You could hear everything, his threat about knowing where I lived, Sarah telling him he was being insane, even my comment about assault in front of 40 witnesses. There's worse, Coach Davidson continued grimly. Someone made a compilation video. Tyler Morrison, Lincoln High bully. It's got footage from the cafeteria last month when he dumped chocolate milk on that sophomore, the thing with Danny Rodriguez's backpack, even audio of him calling Jessica Park a fat pig in the hallway. Principal Hayes looked like he was going to be sick. How do they have all this? Kids record everything now, Coach Davidson said. Apparently they've been documenting Tyler's behavior for months, just waiting for someone to care enough to watch. Mom turned to Principal Hayes with laser focus. So these 7 minor incidents you mentioned? They weren't so minor that students felt the need to secretly record them for evidence. The silence stretched until Coach Davidson cleared his throat. There's more. I called Coach Martinez over at Riverside High, we play them Friday. He says 3 of his players have been asking if they really have to shake hands with Tyler after the game. Apparently he threatened to break their kneecaps during last year's match. Jesus Christ, Principal Hayes muttered, then caught himself. Sorry, Dr. Williams. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to every student you failed to protect. Mom's voice was arctic now. Marcus, how long has Tyler been targeting you specifically? I did quick math in my head. First incident was September 15th. He shoulder checked me so hard I dropped my laptop. Screen cracked, cost me $84 to fix. You kept track of dates. I kept track of everything. I pulled out my phone and opened the notes app I'd been maintaining since the second week of school. September 15th, broken laptop. September 22nd, he accidentally knocked my lunch tray out of my hands in front of the whole cafeteria. October 3rd, he cornered me in the bathroom and told me I looked like a disease and should transfer schools. Principal Hayes was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. You documented all of this. 43 separate incidents through today. Times, dates, witnesses when possible. I scrolled through the list, months of humiliation reduced to clinical entries. I was going to bring it to you after I had 50, figuring you'd need overwhelming evidence to act against the star quarterback. Mom took my phone and started reading, her expression getting darker with each entry. October 18th, Tyler threw a tennis ball at my head during study hall, claimed it was an accident when Mrs. Rodriguez looked up. October 31st, Tyler told everyone I was too poor to afford a real Halloween costume because I wore my regular clothes. Ma'am, if Marcus had brought these incidents to our attention sooner, Principal Hayes started. Stop, Mom said without looking up from my phone. November 12th, Tyler poured water on my chair right before AP Chemistry, told everyone I wet myself when I sat down. November 28th, Tyler grabbed my essay out of my hands and read it out loud in a mocking voice, making fun of my handwriting. Coach Davidson was shaking his head slowly. I had no idea it was this systematic. December 5th, Mom continued, her voice getting harder with each word. Tyler shoved me into a locker so hard the handle cut my back. When I told Mrs. Patterson I fell downstairs, she offered to call my mother. I declined. Mom looked up at Principal Hayes. My son has been protecting your school's reputation for 4 months while you protected his attacker. The office felt smaller suddenly, like the walls were closing in on Principal Hayes. He kept opening and closing his mouth, but no words were coming out. There's something else, I said quietly. Tyler isn't just targeting me. I started paying attention to his patterns after the 3rd week. He's got a whole system. I pulled up another note file. He goes after kids who can't fight back and won't get sympathy. Danny Rodriguez, parents don't speak English well, can't advocate effectively. Jessica Park, struggles with weight, already gets bullied by others so one more tormentor blends in. Kevin Chen, no relation, but Asian kids apparently look alike to Tyler, so Kevin gets residual harassment meant for me. How many students? Mom asked. I did a quick count. 11 that I've personally witnessed. Probably more I haven't seen. Coach Davidson was staring at his phone screen, watching Tyler's meltdown loop endlessly. 23 years I've been coaching. I've never had a player lose a full ride over a 2-minute video. Principal Hayes finally found his voice. We need to control this situation before it gets any worse. Control it? Mom stood up, and even at 5'4", she somehow seemed to tower over everyone in the room. Mr. Hayes, this situation has been out of control for months. The only thing that's changed is that you can't ignore it anymore. Principal Hayes opened his mouth to respond, but his secretary's voice crackled through the intercom. Mr. Hayes? Tyler Morrison's parents are here. They're demanding to see you immediately. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Through the frosted glass of the office door, I could see 2 figures in the hallway, one tall and broad-shouldered like Tyler, the other gesticulating wildly with perfectly manicured hands. Send them in, Principal Hayes said, his voice resigned. The door burst open before his secretary could respond. Richard Morrison filled the doorframe, 6'5" of expensive suit and barely contained rage. Behind him, Patricia Morrison looked like she'd stepped off a country club magazine cover, all blonde highlights and tennis bracelet fury. What the hell is this about my son being suspended? Richard's voice boomed through the small office. Do you have any idea what you're jeopardizing? The state scholarship, the championship game on Friday. He stopped mid-sentence when he noticed my mother and me. His eyes lingered on my split lip and the ice pack against my jaw, and I watched his expression shift from outrage to calculation. You must be the other boy, Patricia said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. Oh sweetie, that looks painful. But boys will be boys, won't they? Sometimes these little scuffles just get blown out of proportion. Mom's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. Little scuffles. Your son kicked my child while he was on the ground. Now see here, Richard stepped forward, using his height to intimidate. Tyler said this kid was harassing his girlfriend. My son was protecting. Your son was caught on video threatening to stalk a minor at his home, Mom interrupted smoothly. Multiple videos, actually. Have you seen them yet? The silence stretched uncomfortably. Patricia's perfect composure cracked slightly. Videos? Coach Davidson held up his phone. It's gone viral, Mrs. Morrison. Hashtag Lincoln High Bully is trending on 3 platforms. Patricia snatched the phone and watched, her face going progressively paler. Richard leaned over her shoulder, and I saw the exact moment he realized how bad this was. His jaw clenched, and a vein started throbbing in his forehead. This is taken completely out of context, he said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. What context makes kicking a smaller student acceptable? Mom asked. Tyler's under enormous pressure, Patricia jumped in, her country club facade crumbling into desperate mother mode. The championship, college scouts, maintaining his grades. Sometimes kids crack under stress. 11 kids, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. Tyler didn't crack under stress. He systematically targeted 11 different students over 4 months. I have documentation. Richard's face went red. You've been spying on my son. I've been documenting my own assault and harassment. I kept my voice level, along with what I witnessed him doing to others. Principal Hayes, Patricia's voice turned pleading. Surely we can work something out. Tyler's learned his lesson. Maybe some community service, anger management counseling. Mrs. Morrison, Principal Hayes said carefully, the school district's zero-tolerance policy is very clear about physical violence. Zero tolerance. Richard's voice cracked like a whip. Where was your zero tolerance when the Henderson kid brought that knife last year? He got counseling and stayed on the baseball team. The Henderson situation was completely different. Because he wasn't a quarterback. Mom interjected. Because his college scholarship wasn't worth protecting. Patricia rounded on my mother with sudden viciousness. Don't you dare judge our family. Do you have any idea what Tyler's been through? The pressure he's under. Your son is nobody, no sports, no social standing, no future prospects. Tyler has everything to lose here. The office went dead silent. Even Richard looked shocked at his wife's outburst. Coach Davidson was staring at Patricia like she'd just confessed to murder. Mom's voice, when she finally spoke, was terrifyingly calm. Did you just say my son is nobody? I didn't mean. You meant exactly what you said. Mom stood up slowly. You think your son's football career gives him the right to terrorize other children? Now wait just a minute, Richard started. No, you wait. Mom's voice cut through his bluster like a surgical blade. Your wife just articulated perfectly why this happened. You've raised a child who believes other people don't matter if they can't help his football career. Patricia was backpedaling frantically. I was upset, I spoke poorly. You spoke honestly, Mom said. And now I understand exactly why Tyler thought he could threaten to come to my home. Because you taught him that people like us don't count. Richard tried a different approach, his voice shifting to what probably passed for reasonable in boardrooms. Look, Dr. Williams, is it? We're all parents here. Surely we can find a solution that protects all our children's futures. Absolutely, Mom agreed. I'm going to protect my child's future by ensuring your son faces consequences for his actions. Starting with a police report for assault and terroristic threatening. Both Morrisons went white. You can't be serious, Patricia whispered. Deadly serious. And then I'm going to protect every other child in this school by making sure the school board understands how badly this situation was mishandled. Mom gathered her purse and stood up. Principal Hayes, will be filing a formal complaint with the district tomorrow morning. I assume you'll have your incident reports ready. Principal Hayes nodded miserably. The championship dreams, the college recruitment visits, the whole golden image of Lincoln High's football program, I could practically see it all crumbling in real time. This isn't over, Richard said as we headed for the door. Mom paused and looked back at him. You're absolutely right. It's just getting started. As we walked out of Principal Hayes' office, I could hear Richard Morrison's voice rising behind us, demanding to know what legal options the school had to contain the situation. The desperation in his tone was almost musical. Mom didn't say a word until we reached her car in the visitor parking lot. Then she turned to me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Marcus, I need you to be completely honest with me. Why didn't you tell me about any of this sooner? I'd been dreading this question for months. Because I knew you'd want to fix it immediately, and I needed it to get worse before it got better. She stared at me for a long moment. What do you mean by that? I mean Tyler Morrison has been untouchable because he's careful. He never goes too far in front of adults, never leaves evidence, always has plausible deniability. I pulled out my phone and showed her the video that was now at 8,000 views. But I knew if I waited long enough, if I pushed the right buttons, he'd eventually lose control in a way that couldn't be ignored or explained away. Mom was quiet for almost a full minute. You planned this. Not the specifics. But yeah, I've been planning something like this since October. I touched my split lip gingerly. I just never expected it to work this well. Marcus. Mom's voice was somewhere between admiration and horror. You used yourself as bait. I used myself as evidence. There's a difference. I pulled up my notes app again. Look at the pattern, Tyler always escalates when he thinks his authority is being challenged. I've been refusing to show the fear response he needs, so the harassment kept getting more obvious, more public. Mom scrolled through my documentation, shaking her head slowly. The chess club incident on November 15th, you wrote that Tyler knocked over the whole board when you were winning a game. You were deliberately beating him at something. Tyler needs to dominate every social interaction. When someone doesn't submit properly, he gets desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. I gestured toward the school building. Like punching someone in front of the entire senior class. Jesus, Marcus. You could have been seriously hurt. I was seriously hurt. 43 times over 4 months. The only difference is that today it happened with witnesses and cameras. I started the engine. Mom, Tyler Morrison destroyed my laptop, humiliated me daily, and made me afraid to use the bathroom between classes. This isn't revenge, it's justice. My phone buzzed with a text from Jenny Martinez, *, Channel 7 News wants to interview students about the bullying situation. They're going to be here tomorrow morning. *. Then another from someone I didn't recognize, *, dude your video made it to Reddit. 50,000 upvotes and counting. Tyler's fucked. *. Mom saw me reading and raised an eyebrow. Anything important? Local news wants interviews. And apparently we've gone national on social media. I showed her the notification numbers climbing in real time. Tyler Morrison's college football career just became a cautionary tale about bullying. How do you feel about that? I considered the question seriously. 3 hours ago, Tyler Morrison had seemed untouchable, protected by coaches, administrators, and parents who treated his football talent like a get-out-of-jail-free card. Now his scholarship was gone, his reputation was in ruins, and every college recruiter in the state knew his name for all the wrong reasons. I feel like 43 documented incidents of harassment finally got answered appropriately. Mom pulled out of the parking lot, and I caught sight of Tyler through the office window. He was slumped in a chair while his parents gestured frantically at Principal Hayes, probably trying to negotiate some kind of damage control. But there was no controlling this anymore. The machine had started, and it was going to keep running until everyone understood exactly what Tyler Morrison really was beneath the Letterman jacket and quarterback smile. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. My split lip had turned an impressive shade of purple overnight, and my ribs protested every time I took a deep breath. But the real pain was going to be Tyler's when he saw what had happened while he slept. Jenny Martinez had texted at 6:47 a.m. Marcus, you need to see this now. Check Channel 7's website. Asterisk. The headline made me smile despite my swollen face. Local quarterback scholarship revoked after viral bullying video. Below it was a professional headshot of Tyler in his Letterman jacket, right next to a screenshot from yesterday's parking lot footage showing him mid-kick while I was curled up on the ground. But that wasn't the best part. The best part was the sidebar article, Pattern of Abuse, 5 more Lincoln High students come forward. I scrolled through the testimonials, recognizing names I documented in my notes. Danny Rodriguez had told them about Tyler flushing his head in a bathroom toilet last month. Jessica Park described being cornered and called Whale Girl so consistently that she'd started eating lunch in the library. Kevin Chen, my accidental namesake, had been shoved down a flight of stairs hard enough to sprain his wrist. 7 students have now provided detailed accounts of systematic harassment by Morrison, the article continued, raising questions about why school administrators failed to address the pattern of behavior before yesterday's violent escalation. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code from State University. Marcus Williams. This is Coach Thompson from State's football program. I wanted to personally apologize for our former recruit's behavior toward you. Former recruit, those 2 words were worth every bruise. I appreciate that, Coach Thompson. We're also implementing new social media screening protocols for all our prospects. What happened to you should never happen to any student. His voice was genuinely angry. I've been coaching for 18 years, and bullies have no place in our program. After I hung up, Mom appeared in my doorway holding a cup of coffee and looking like she hadn't slept much. Channel 7 called the house at 6:30, she said. They want to interview you for the evening news. Something about student safety and administrative accountability. Did you say yes? I said I'd discuss it with you. She sat on the edge of my bed. Marcus, are you prepared for how big this might get? The reporter mentioned that 3 other school districts have had similar incidents with athletes getting protected from consequences. I pulled up Twitter on my phone. Hashtag Lincoln High Bully was trending nationally now, with over 200,000 posts. Someone had created a compilation video called When Bullies Think They're Untouchable that had been viewed 1.2 million times overnight. Tyler's face was literally becoming the poster child for everything wrong with how schools handle violence from star athletes. Look at this, I showed Mom a tweet from a verified account with 500,000 followers. This is exactly why we need federal oversight of school bullying policies. How many kids suffered in silence while Tyler Morrison was protected? Hashtag Justice for Marcus. Mom scrolled through the responses, hundreds of people sharing their own stories about bullies who faced no consequences because they were athletes, honor students, or had well-connected parents. Tyler's public meltdown had opened a floodgate. There's more, I said, opening my email. I've got interview requests from 3 podcasts, 2 documentaries about school bullying, and something called The Justice Chronicles wants to feature my documentation methods. My phone buzzed with a text from Alex in my chemistry class, asterisk, dude Tyler's not at school today. His parents hired a PR firm. This is insane. Asterisk. A PR firm. Richard Morrison was apparently treating his son's assault charge like a corporate scandal that could be managed with the right messaging strategy. But you can't spin a video of a 17-year-old kicking a smaller kid while making threats about home invasion. What do you want to do? Mom asked. I thought about Tyler's face yesterday when Coach Davidson mentioned the lost scholarship. The desperation, the disbelief that his actions could have real consequences. For 4 months, he'd operated like someone who believed he was fundamentally untouchable. Now he knew better. But more importantly, every other potential Tyler Morrison in every other school was watching this unfold and learning that star athletes weren't immune to justice anymore. I want to do the interview, I said. All of them. The Channel 7 interview was scheduled for 3 p.m., but by noon, the Lincoln High parking lot looked like a media circus. 3 news vans, reporters doing stand-ups in front of the school sign, and what looked like every student with a phone trying to get their 15 seconds of fame. I was sitting in the guidance counselor's office, waiting to give my official statement to Officer Martinez from the school resource division, when Mrs. Chen, the counselor, not Kevin's mom, knocked on the door with a strange expression. Marcus, there's been a development. Tyler Morrison's family has filed a restraining order against you. I blinked. A restraining order? Against me? Officer Martinez looked up from his notepad. What's the basis for the order? Mrs. Chen handed me a manila folder. They're claiming harassment and cyberbullying. According to their filing, you've been systematically stalking and documenting Tyler's activities with the intent to destroy his reputation and future prospects. I opened the folder and read the legal document, my split lip stretching painfully as I tried not to smile. They're using my documentation against me. The same documentation that proves Tyler assaulted me. It gets worse, Mrs. Chen continued. They're also claiming that you deliberately provoked Tyler yesterday with the intent of getting him to assault you on camera. Something about entrapment and malicious prosecution. Officer Martinez snorted. Entrapment requires a law enforcement officer. A kid can't entrap another kid into committing assault. Tell that to their lawyer, Mrs. Chen said grimly. Morrison's parents hired Patricia Kelman from downtown. She specializes in protecting wealthy clients' children from consequences. I knew that name. Patricia Kelman had gotten the mayor's son out of a DUI charge last year by arguing that the breathalyzer was miscalibrated. She was expensive, ruthless, and very good at making victims look like villains. What does this mean for the interview? I asked. Officer Martinez closed his notepad. Legally, nothing. You have First Amendment rights to discuss your own assault. But Kelman's probably going to use anything you say publicly to support their narrative that you're obsessed with destroying Tyler. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, this is Sarah Chen from your history class. We need to talk. Meet me in the library after school. It's about Tyler and the restraining order. There's something you need to know. Asterisk. I showed the text to Officer Martinez. Tyler's girlfriend wants to meet. That seems relevant. Very relevant. Especially if she's willing to contradict the narrative Tyler's family is building. He handed me his card. Marcus, I need you to understand something. This case isn't just about you anymore. The district attorney is watching, the school board is involved, and there's going to be pressure from both sides to make this go away quietly. Pressure from who? Tyler's family donated $60,000 to the school's athletic program last year. Richard Morrison sits on the hospital board where your mother works. These people have connections, and they're going to use them. The implications hit me like a cold wave. They're going to try to hurt my mom's job. They're going to try everything they can think of, Officer Martinez said bluntly. That's why documentation is crucial. Every text, every email, every interaction needs to be recorded from now on. Mrs. Chen's phone rang, and she answered with increasing agitation. Yes, I understand. No, we cannot prevent a student from speaking to media. Because he's the victim, Mr. Morrison. No, sir, that's not how First Amendment rights work. She hung up and turned to us. Richard Morrison. He's demanding that Principal Hayes prohibit you from doing any interviews, claiming it violates the restraining order they filed. Which doesn't exist yet, Officer Martinez pointed out. They filed a request for a restraining order. A judge still has to approve it, which won't happen until Monday at the earliest. My phone rang. Jenny Martinez from Student Council. Marcus, you need to know something. Channel 7 just interviewed Tyler's parents in their driveway. His mom said you've been obsessed with Tyler since freshman year and that yesterday was you finally snapping and attacking him. I put the phone on speaker. She said I attacked Tyler. She said you threw the first punch and Tyler was defending himself. And get this, she claimed there's video evidence that the media hasn't seen yet, showing you being the aggressor. Officer Martinez and Mrs. Chen exchanged glances. What video? Officer Martinez asked. That's what Channel 7 wanted to know. Mrs. Morrison said their lawyer advised them not to release it until the proper authorities reviewed it, but she was confident it would exonerate Tyler completely. After Jenny hung up, the room was quiet for a long moment. They're lying, I said finally. There is no video of me attacking Tyler, because it never happened. I know that, and you know that, Officer Martinez said. But Patricia Kelman is very good at creating reasonable doubt. If she can convince people that you're an obsessed stalker who orchestrated this whole situation, Tyler becomes the victim instead of you. Mrs. Chen's computer chimed with an email notification. She read it and her face went pale. The school board called an emergency meeting for tonight. The agenda item is listed as Review of Media Protocols and Student Conduct Policies in light of recent incidents. She looked at me. They're going to try to change the rules retroactively to make what you did wrong. The machine I built was working perfectly, but now Tyler's family was building a machine of their own, designed to crush me and anyone who supported me. The real fight was just beginning. The school board meeting was held in the Lincoln High Auditorium at 7 p.m., and by 6:45, every seat was filled. I sat in the front row with Mom, watching board members shuffle papers and avoid eye contact while Patricia Kelman, Tyler's lawyer, arranged a presentation at the podium like she was preparing to argue before the Supreme Court. Richard Morrison sat 3 rows behind us, wearing a navy suit that probably cost more than our monthly rent. I could feel his eyes boring holes in the back of my head, but I kept my focus forward. The local news cameras were positioned along the side walls, their operators looking like they couldn't believe their luck at landing such a perfect David versus Goliath story. Before we begin, Board President Janet Walsh announced, I want to remind everyone that this is a closed personnel session. No public comments will be taken. Point of order, Mom stood up smoothly. This meeting was publicly noticed as discussing student conduct policies, which requires public input under state sunshine laws. Patricia Kelman immediately objected. Mrs. Walsh, Dr. Williams' son is currently under investigation for harassment and stalking. Allowing him to participate in policy discussions creates a clear conflict of interest. What investigation? Officer Martinez called out from the back of the auditorium. I'm the investigating officer, and Marcus Williams is the victim in this case, not a suspect. The murmur that ran through the crowd was exactly what Kelman wanted. She'd managed to plant the seed that I was somehow under investigation, even though no such investigation existed. Classic misdirection. Nevertheless, board member Thompson jumped in, and I recognized him as the father of Tyler's backup quarterback. We need to address the social media policy violations that occurred in this incident. What policy violations? I asked, standing up despite Mom's attempt to pull me back down. Thompson consulted his notes dramatically. Lincoln High's student handbook clearly states that students may not record other students without permission, may not share videos that damage the school's reputation, and may not engage in cyberbullying or harassment campaigns. The auditorium erupted. Parents were shouting over each other, students were filming everything on their phones, and Board President Walsh was banging her gavel like she was trying to crack the podium in half. Order. We will have order. When the noise died down, Patricia Kelman stepped to the microphone with a satisfied smile. Thank you, Board President Walsh. As you can see, this situation has spiraled completely out of control due to one student's malicious campaign against my client. She clicked a remote, and the projection screen behind her lit up with a timeline titled, Marcus Williams, Pattern of Obsessive Behavior. September 15th, she began, reading from my own documentation, Mr. Williams begins systematically recording and cataloging every interaction with my client. Note the obsessive detail, times, locations, witness names. This isn't a victim keeping records. This is a stalker building a dossier. My stomach dropped as she continued through my notes, twisting every entry into evidence of obsession rather than abuse. My careful documentation, the thing I'd been most proud of, was being weaponized against me. October 31st, Mr. Williams deliberately wore no Halloween costume to school, knowing my client would comment, specifically to create an incident for his files. November 15th, Mr. Williams joined chess club for one day, specifically to play against my client and create conflict. The chess club thing was partially true. I had joined specifically to play Tyler, but only because he'd been bragging about being naturally gifted at strategy games. I wanted to see how he handled losing at something that couldn't be won with muscle mass. January 14th, Kelman continued, her voice rising. Mr. Williams positions himself in the senior parking lot at exactly 3:45 p.m., knowing my client would be there for ride pickup. He approaches my client's girlfriend with a fabricated request for homework help, knowing this would provoke a confrontation. The auditorium was dead silent now. Even Mom was staring at me with a strange expression, probably wondering how much of Kelman's narrative might be true. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, Kelman concluded, what we witnessed yesterday wasn't bullying. It was the culmination of a 4-month stalking campaign by an obsessed student who deliberately engineered a public confrontation to destroy my client's future. She clicked her remote again, and the screen showed Tyler's school photo, clean-cut, smiling, everything a college recruiter wanted to see. Tyler Morrison is guilty of one thing, falling into a carefully laid trap set by someone who documented his every move, studied his behavioral patterns, and manipulated him into a moment of poor judgment that's now cost him everything he's worked for. The worst part was that she wasn't entirely wrong. I had studied Tyler's patterns. I had positioned myself strategically. I had been waiting for him to lose control publicly. But I'd been doing it to survive 4 months of daily torture, not to destroy an innocent person. Board President Walsh cleared her throat. Thank you, Ms. Kelman. The board will now deliberate on appropriate policy responses to prevent future incidents of this nature. As the board members filed out for their closed session, Richard Morrison finally approached us. Dr. Williams, he said, his voice carefully controlled, I think we need to discuss a resolution that protects both our sons. Mom stood up so fast her chair nearly tipped over. Mr. Morrison, if you want to discuss anything regarding my son, you can speak through our attorney. I don't think that's necessary, Richard said, his boardroom smile not reaching his eyes. I'm simply suggesting that we find a way for both boys to move forward from this unfortunate situation. Unfortunate situation? My voice cracked slightly. Your son kicked me while I was on the ground and threatened to come to my house. According to Ms. Kelman's presentation, you orchestrated that entire confrontation. Richard's tone was reasonable, almost paternal. Marcus, I understand you felt wronged, but destroying Tyler's future won't undo whatever happened between you two. Officer Martinez materialized beside us like he'd been waiting for this exact conversation. Mr. Morrison, you're attempting to contact the victim of an assault your son committed. I'd strongly advise against that. There's no restraining order preventing me from speaking to Dr. Williams, Richard replied smoothly. I'm simply offering a path forward that doesn't destroy 2 young men's lives. What kind of path? Mom asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Richard glanced around the auditorium, noting the reporters still packing up equipment and the clusters of parents discussing what they'd just witnessed. Perhaps we could find somewhere more private to discuss this. Right here is fine, Mom said. In front of witnesses. That earned a tight smile from Richard. Very well. The Morrison family is prepared to make a substantial donation to Marcus's college fund, let's say $50,000, in exchange for Marcus issuing a public statement clarifying that yesterday's incident was a mutual altercation that got out of hand. The auditorium had gone quiet around us. Parents who'd been heading for the exits were lingering, pretending to check their phones while clearly listening to every word. $50,000, Mom repeated. To lie about what happened to my son. To acknowledge that sometimes teenagers make mistakes on both sides, Richard corrected. Tyler's already lost his scholarship and his college prospects. Surely that's punishment enough for a momentary lapse in judgment. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Chen, *, don't take the money. Meet me in the parking lot after this ends. I have something that changes everything. *. Mr. Morrison, I said carefully, are you offering me money to commit perjury? Officer Martinez stepped closer. That's an excellent question, Marcus. Mr. Morrison, are you asking a minor to make false statements to law enforcement about a crime? The reasonable mask slipped from Richard's face for just a second, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. I'm offering to help a young man pay for college instead of pursuing a destructive legal battle that will hurt both our families. The legal battle where your son faces assault charges? Mom asked. Because those charges aren't going away regardless of what Marcus says publicly. Actually, they might. Patricia Kelman had appeared beside Richard like a perfectly dressed shark. If Marcus recants his version of events and acknowledges his role in provoking the altercation, the prosecutor might view this as mutual combat rather than assault. Mutual combat between a 200-pound quarterback and a kid who weighs 140 pounds. Officer Martinez's voice was incredulous. Size doesn't determine aggression, Kelman replied smoothly. We have evidence that Marcus has been systematically provoking and harassing Tyler for months, culminating in yesterday's confrontation that Marcus deliberately engineered and recorded. Jenny Martinez appeared at my elbow, slightly out of breath. Marcus, you need to see this. Channel 7 just posted an update. 3 more students came forward with Tyler stories, including someone with hospital records. She showed me her phone screen. The headline read, 7th victim, student hospitalized after Morrison incident. Patricia Kelman's face went white as she read over my shoulder. Who is it? Kevin Thompson. Tyler pushed him down the main staircase in November. Concussion, broken wrist, missed 2 weeks of school. Jenny was practically vibrating with excitement. His parents kept quiet because his dad works for Morrison Construction, but after seeing the other kids come forward. Richard Morrison's jaw was working like he was chewing glass. A hospitalization meant medical records, insurance claims, documentation that couldn't be spun or dismissed. Kevin Thompson wasn't just another victim, he was evidence that Tyler's violence had been escalating for months. That changes nothing, Kelman said, but her voice lacked conviction. Mr. Thompson's incident was investigated and deemed accidental. By who? Officer Martinez pulled out his notepad. Because I don't have any report about a student being hospitalized after an altercation with Tyler Morrison. The silence stretched until Board President Walsh returned from the closed session, looking like she'd aged 5 years in 30 minutes. After deliberation, the board has decided to table any policy changes pending the outcome of the criminal investigation, she announced. This meeting is adjourned. As people began filing out, Sarah Chin appeared in the doorway, still in her work uniform from the coffee shop. She caught my eye and nodded toward the parking lot. Whatever she had to tell me was about to change everything. Again. The parking lot was nearly empty by the time I made it outside, my ribs still protesting every step. Sarah was leaning against her beat-up Honda Civic, clutching a manila envelope like it contained nuclear launch codes. I've been waiting for the right moment to give you this, she said without preamble. After what just happened in there with Tyler's lawyer, I think now's the time. She handed me the envelope, her hands shaking slightly. I've been recording Tyler for weeks. Not just the stuff he did to you, everything. My heart started pounding as I opened the envelope and found a USB drive along with printed transcripts. The first page was dated November 3rd, and the header read, Tyler Morrison, Private Conversations, Audio File 001. Recording him how? Mom asked, appearing beside me with Officer Martinez in tow. Sarah's face flushed red. Tyler, he talks during intimate moments. Brags, really. About what he's done to other kids, how easy it is to get away with stuff because his dad donates money everywhere. She gestured at the transcripts. I started recording our phone conversations after I realized he was getting off on hurting people. Officer Martinez took the pages and started reading, his expression growing darker with each line. Jesus Christ. Sarah, some of this is sociopathic. Sarah finished. Yeah, I figured that out around Thanksgiving. I read over his shoulder, my stomach churning. November 3rd, that Rodriguez kid actually cried when I held his head under the faucet. Like, real tears. It was pathetic but kind of hilarious. November 18th, Marcus thinks he's so smart with his little notebook, like I don't know he's writing everything down. I should break his fingers, see how well he documents stuff then. December 2nd, my dad says the school can't do anything as long as I keep my grades up and we keep winning games. These people need me more than I need them. There's 47 audio files, Sarah said quietly. 3 months of Tyler describing every kid he's hurt, every teacher he's manipulated, every time his parents bought his way out of consequences. Mom was reading another transcript, her face pale. Sarah, did Tyler know you were recording? God, no. He would have killed me. Literally. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself. I started because I thought if I could prove to him how awful he sounded, maybe he'd change. But it just kept getting worse. Officer Martinez was taking notes furiously. This is admissible evidence. Tyler had no expectation of privacy during phone conversations, and some of these admissions constitute confessions to assault, terroristic threatening, even conspiracy. There's more, Sarah said, pulling out her phone. Tyler's been planning something for you, Marcus. Something he calls the final solution. He was going to wait until after the championship game, then. She played an audio file dated January 10th, just 4 days ago. Tyler's voice came through tinny but clear, I'm done playing games with that little freak. After Friday's game, I'm going to his apartment. Teach him what happens when nobody disrespects me. Maybe break some of his mom's stuff too, let them know the cost of fucking with Tyler Morrison. The parking lot went dead silent except for the distant hum of traffic on Main Street. Tyler hadn't just been threatening to come to my house, he'd been actively planning a home invasion. That's premeditated assault and burglary, Officer Martinez said grimly. Sarah, I need the original recordings and a formal statement. Tonight. There's one more thing, Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. Tyler's been selling Adderall to half the football team. His parents get it prescribed for ADHD he doesn't have, and he distributes it for game day performance enhancement. She handed Officer Martinez another USB drive. Audio files of him setting prices, scheduling deliveries, even bragging about how much money he's made. The whole team's been using. Richard Morrison's voice carried across the parking lot as he exited the school building with Patricia Kelman, both of them talking intensely about damage control strategies and media management. They have no idea what's coming, Mom said, watching them walk to Richard's BMW. Officer Martinez was already on his radio, calling for backup and a warrant. Sarah, I need you to come to the station tonight. This just became a multi-felony investigation involving drug distribution and conspiracy charges. My phone buzzed with a text from Jenny Martinez, Channel 7 wants to do a follow-up interview tomorrow. Something about new evidence in the Morrison case. You interested? I looked at the USB drives full of Tyler's confessions, at Sarah's transcripts documenting months of calculated cruelty, at Officer Martinez coordinating what looked like it was about to become the biggest scandal in Lincoln High's history. Tyler Morrison thought he was untouchable because his family had money and connections. But he'd made one crucial mistake, he trusted his girlfriend with the truth about who he really was. Tomorrow morning, Tyler wasn't just going to wake up to assault charges. He was going to wake up to drug dealing charges, conspiracy charges, and audio recordings of himself confessing to crimes against 11 different students. The machine I built was about to become unstoppable. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of helicopters. Not one or two, at least 4, circling Lincoln High like it was a crime scene. Which, I realized as I checked my phone, it basically was. 17 missed calls, 93 text messages, and a voicemail from someone claiming to be a producer at CNN. The story had gone national overnight, thanks to Sarah's recordings hitting every major news outlet simultaneously. The headline on Channel 7's website made me sit up so fast my ribs screamed, exclusive, audio reveals HS quarterback's drug operation, planned home invasion. But that wasn't the headline that made my blood run cold. That honor went to the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department press release, multiple felony charges filed against minor, investigation ongoing into institutional cover-up. My phone rang. Officer Martinez. Marcus, don't go to school today. Don't leave your apartment. Richard Morrison made bail 20 minutes ago. Bail for what? Obstruction of justice, conspiracy to commit assault, and accessory after the fact. Turns out some of those audio files caught him coaching Tyler on how to avoid consequences. Martinez's voice was grim. He's facing potential jail time, his construction company's under federal investigation for tax evasion, and his wife's been arrested for prescription fraud. I walked to my bedroom window and peeked through the blinds. 3 news vans were parked across the street, and a man in an expensive suit was talking to Mrs. Henderson from 3B. He looked like a private investigator, and Mrs. Henderson was shaking her head vigorously. They're already here, I told Martinez. Someone's interviewing my neighbors. Morrison hired a crisis management firm out of Chicago. They're trying to find dirt on you and your mom, anything to shift the narrative. Martinez paused. Marcus, there's something else. Tyler's been transferred to county lockup. Judge denied bail after hearing the audio about planning to invade your home. That should have made me feel safer, but something in Martinez's tone suggested more bad news was coming. What aren't you telling me? 3 board members resigned this morning. Principal Hayes was placed on administrative leave. And the state attorney general's office is launching a formal investigation into how long school administrators knew about Tyler's behavior and did nothing. My phone beeped with an incoming call. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code, Lincoln High. That's probably Superintendent Walsh, Martinez said. Word is she's trying to cut a deal with your family before the state investigation goes public. Probably offering money to keep you quiet about administrative negligence. The irony was perfect. Yesterday, Richard Morrison had offered me $50,000 to lie about what happened. Today, the school district was probably about to offer me even more to keep quiet about their systematic failure to protect students. Martinez, what happens if I keep talking to reporters? Honestly, this thing gets bigger. Those audio files don't just implicate Tyler, they mention specific teachers who ignored complaints, administrators who buried reports, even school board members who knew about the prescription drug operation. Through my window, I watched another news van pull up, this one with National Public Radio painted on the side. A woman with a professional microphone was setting up near the building entrance. Sarah's recordings didn't just destroy Tyler, I realized out loud. They're going to bring down half the administration. And Richard Morrison's construction company, which built the new gymnasium and has contracts for the upcoming stadium renovation. The FBI's been looking for a reason to investigate municipal corruption in Lincoln County. Tyler just handed them everything they needed. My phone displayed 7 missed calls from Superintendent Walsh in the past 10 minutes. Marcus, Martinez said carefully, you need to understand what you're choosing between here. Take whatever money they offer, sign a non-disclosure agreement, and this goes away quietly. Everyone gets to rebuild their lives. And if I don't take the money, then you keep telling the truth, and this becomes the biggest municipal scandal in county history. Which is probably what these people deserve, but it's going to make you enemies with very long memories and very deep pockets. I thought about Tyler's voice on those recordings, bragging about making Kevin Thompson cry, planning to break my fingers, describing other students like they were toys that existed for his amusement. Then I thought about 11 other kids who tried to report him and been ignored. The helicopters were getting louder, and Mrs. Henderson was now talking to her second reporter of the morning. Officer Martinez, I said, when does Channel 7 want to do that follow-up interview? They want you in studio at 3 p.m., Martinez said. But Marcus, once you do that interview with Sarah's recordings as evidence, there's no going back. Are you sure you're ready for that? I looked out at the circus surrounding my apartment building, the news vans, the helicopters, the reporters interviewing anyone who'd ever spoken to me. 6 months ago, I was invisible. Now I was the center of a story that was going to reshape how people thought about bullying and institutional corruption. My phone rang again. Superintendent Walsh, attempt number 8. This time, I answered. Marcus, thank God, her voice was strained, desperate. We need to meet immediately. The school district is prepared to offer you and your mother a settlement of $200,000 to resolve this matter quietly. $200,000. Enough to pay for college, buy mom a new car, move out of this apartment complex forever. All I had to do was disappear quietly and let everyone pretend Tyler Morrison was just one bad apple instead of the symptom of a completely rotten system. What about the other kids? I asked. Danny Rodriguez, Jessica Park, Kevin Thompson, do they get $200,000 too? The pause was telling. We're prepared to discuss additional compensation for families who feel they were affected. Families who feel they were affected. My voice was getting louder. Mrs. Walsh, Kevin Thompson was hospitalized. Jessica Park hasn't eaten lunch in the cafeteria since October because Tyler terrorized her so badly. These aren't feelings, these are documented injuries. Marcus, please. Think about your future. This money could change your entire life trajectory. She was right. $200,000 would solve every financial problem my family had ever faced. But it would also mean that Tyler Morrison's 37 audio recordings confessing to systematic abuse would disappear into legal non-disclosure agreements. It would mean that 11 kids learned their suffering had a price tag, and the school district had decided it was worth paying rather than admitting fault. It would mean nothing would actually change. Mrs. Walsh, I said carefully, I have one question. If another Tyler Morrison walks into Lincoln High next year, what's going to be different? Another pause. We're implementing new anti-bullying protocols. The same protocols you had when Tyler was hospitalizing students. Marcus, please be reasonable. The board has authorized me to go as high as $300,000. I hung up and looked at Officer Martinez, who'd been listening to my side of the conversation with growing amazement. You just turned down $300,000. I just chose justice over money. I pulled up the Channel 7 contact information. What time did you say they wanted me in studio? The interview aired at 6 p.m. on a Thursday, exactly 1 week after Tyler Morrison had punched me in a Lincoln High parking lot. By 6:47 p.m., clips from the interview were trending on every major platform. By Friday morning, Superintendent Walsh, Principal Hayes, and 4 school board members had resigned. By the following Monday, the FBI had arrested Richard Morrison on federal conspiracy charges, and the State Department of Education had placed Lincoln High under emergency oversight. Tyler Morrison pled guilty to 11 counts of assault, drug distribution, and conspiracy charges. He was sentenced to 18 months in juvenile detention followed by community service and mandatory counseling. His football career was over, but more importantly, his ability to terrorize other kids was over too. The school district settlement eventually reached $1.2 million, distributed among all of Tyler's victims and their families. But the real victory wasn't the money, it was the new protocols requiring body cameras for all school security, independent investigation of athlete misconduct, and zero-tolerance policies with actual enforcement. 3 years later, when I graduated valedictorian and gave my commencement speech about the power of documentation and systematic change, Tyler Morrison was working at a fast food restaurant 2 counties away. His parents had moved out of Lincoln after their construction company collapsed under federal investigation. Getting beat up by my classmate really was the best gift ever. Not because I enjoyed the violence, but because it finally gave me the evidence I needed to prove that even golden boys aren't untouchable when the truth comes to light. And sometimes, the truth is worth more than any amount of money they can offer to bury it.